And so we now know that Shane Rangi is going to be in Voyage of the Dawn Treader, and that brings back a really old issue, back from the dead, kind of. This is something that we talked about very, very early on. Even before we had any really news, it was just pure speculation. There was definitely some discussion about, will they include creatures to be a part of the Dawn Treader crew. And I seem to recall talking about this in a past video somewhere, I don't remember which one, but my opinions haven't changed much. That I really believe that if you have, in the book it's a primarily non-human crew. Reepicheep is the only non-human that's part of the Dawn Treader crew, visiting fantastical places. And I think that's really important. I think that really adds to the sense of discovery and the wonder of it. I think that if you have a lot of creatures, well then it's just a fantastical crew discovering fantastical things. And to me that's not that interesting and as identifiable. And it would just really undermine a lot of what makes Dawn Treader such a fun story. But this is, we heard a couple little reports, over the past couple of years, whatever, that kind of, Howard Berger mentioned something, and now you've got this thing about Shane Rangi. And so that's my opinion right there in a nutshell. It's not that complicated. Why would the filmmakers do this? It's not hard to imagine why they would want to do this. It would make the film a little more commercial. Creatures look cool in trailers. They're a little more visually stimulating. And so I think that'd be the main reason. And I guess I can understand where maybe it would be a good idea to have like a fawn or a satyr. We already know that Trumpkin's going to be on board. But, for all intents and purposes, I would say that Trumpkin's a human. As far as the point I'm trying to make about the sense of wonder and discovery, I don't think Trumpkin's going to take away from that much. So I'm opposed to Trumpkin being in the movie for other reasons, but this is not one of them. I don't think he would take away from that. But I guess if you want to be, it would make sense to include a faun or a satyr or two, just to be more reflective of the culture that was established in Prince Caspian. That makes sense, and obviously the creatures worked very well in the first two films. Howard Berger won an Academy Award for Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe for his makeup effects. But if they start having too much fun, getting carried away, then I think that's going to be a huge problem. And I would urge the filmmakers to show a little self-control, show a little restraint. Don't take the easy commercial way out. This is actually an issue that I've been thinking about for some time, the past couple months especially. I mean, this is a constant battle, not just with Narnia, but we're always worried about, with any adaptation, Hollywood putting their own junk into it. With Narnia, our primary concerns, I would say, are adding action scenes and adding inappropriate humor. And those are the two main things we're always worried about. And Lord of the Rings, I think, is a good example of something where they did kind of commercialize it. Like Legolas and Gimli are probably the best examples that come to mind, of Legolas being all Spider-Man cool and Gimli being comic relief. But you know what? Fundamentally, they got it right. It's Lord of the Rings. To some extent, I believe, as fans, we have to put up with Hollywood and their junk a little bit. It's only fair. They're paying for the movie. And you've got to try to make their money back. It's completely unfair to try to say, no, you just have to do this. For the most part, I would say, hey, just stick to the fundamentals of the book. It's a classic. It's lasted for over 50 years. Just try to stick to the book here. And so, as fans, we just have to hope that those changes won't greatly interfere with the story. And Lord of the Rings, I think, is a good example, where they made it more commercial. They made the battles kind of a bigger deal, and they added comic relief and all that annoying stuff. But hey, fundamentally, it's still Lord of the Rings. This is something with the creatures where I really think that it would just have a huge impact on the story. It would dramatically change the tone. It would take away from something that makes the book what it is. So I would urge the filmmakers, resist the temptation to just make it more commercial and just do the right thing. And this has been on my mind recently a lot, just because one of my favorite books ever recently was adapted into a very big budget movie, Watchmen. And the fear was always, and I really assumed they would do this. It's kind of what they did with V for Vendetta in some ways, is they just take it and turn it into a superhero film, a cheesy superhero film. Add action scenes, add, humor, and make it a feel-good thing. Take away all the philosophy and moral ambiguity of it. Then they have this director, Zack Snyder, who was just fearless about it. He approached it as a classic work of literature and said, no, we're not going to change this. And, we know for a fact the studio was always on him, saying, does it have to be rated R? Does it have to be 3 hours long? Does it have to have a penis in it? Does it have to have this weird, awkward structure? All those things that you would expect Hollywood to say, and he just stood up to them and said no, and somehow he got away with it. You know, a Watchmen is truly just a once-in-a-century kind of movie. We'll never see such an anti-Hollywood movie made again, I think, for this budget. It was truly incredible. And so I think I'm spoiled a little bit for that because of Watchmen now with Don Shredder. Like, come on. Obviously, there are some things, like with Prince Caspian, the whole story structure thing, I felt, obviously, you can look at movies and you can find places where they've done this, but in the case of Prince Caspian, I felt like the whole flashback and everything in the book was just inherently uncinematic. And so it made sense to change that. But with creatures, you know, being a primarily non-human crew, I don't think that's inherently uncinematic, so why change it? Go ahead and stick to the book. It's a classic. Go ahead and stick to it. Be fearless about it. But just all that stuff we had to put up with to some extent. For Watchmen, it was so refreshing to have none of that. Not that I like everything in the movie, but just none of that Hollywood, oh, let's add more action, let's do this, blah, blah, blah. None of that at all. It was a fearless work of art. And so now I just think my standard for adaptations has changed a little bit to a pretty unrealistic standard. But, you know, I don't know what to do with that. Because a part of me would just, why can't they just stick to the book, you know? I mean, it's lasted this long. Obviously, there are certain things, make it more cinematic. But apart from that, stick to the fundamentals. And I think this is a really fundamental part of Don Shredder they should not change. They should not mess with. But so that's my feeling on that. I just want a little announcement at the end here. I have created a blog, and another blog, I don't know how long it's going to last, but it's a text blog. If you go to gpuddle.blogspot.com, I'm doing a text blog now. And just to try it, in general, I feel more comfortable talking than typing, but this is just kind of a new thing to try. The main difference is that these videos are really just for me, because I enjoy making videos, and I enjoy watching them, you know, months later, and, you know, oh yeah, I remember when I felt that way, or I changed my opinion, or whatever. This text blog is more like letters to the filmmakers. I really try to write them sort of as if I'm hoping that maybe the filmmakers will actually stumble upon it, you know, sometime, and because I really believe it's important that if you really love these books, it's your duty to hold the filmmakers accountable. Do fans always know what's best? No, but I think that it's important information for the filmmakers that they know how we feel. And so that's kind of what this text blog is going to be. I'll put the web address up here again, and so check that out. But the countdown to Don Shredder continues, and we know they're going to be shooting in a couple months. And so there'll be a lot more to talk about then.